Kansas City Chiefs have proven they're the best team in the NFL right now, but can they keep up the winning as they move forward past week 5? One team that isn't looking good is Pittsburgh, and that's why we're going to be joined by Jeff Hartman. He's the editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for an inside look at what's going on with the Steelers. We'll also take some college football talk here, as well as Oklahoma getting upset and fantasy football news with Jamal Murphy. The OFN on PSN starts now.
Is it blue, Nokia? Transmissions will resume. Now try to keep us all down and hope that.
All right, it's a Monday, October the 9th, 2017. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, as we take a look at what happened this past week in the NFL and college football. That includes, of course, some fantasy football talk at the bottom of the hour with Jamal Murphy. So, yeah, Oklahoma getting beat by Iowa State. And that's it's part of the reason why you can't count on teams from the Big 12. We've talked about that before. And now that they have, see, they think having a Big 12 championship game is going to help them. I think it's actually going to hurt them. I just don't think that the Big 12 is a respected conference right now, nor should it be. I mean, there's just not enough depth, and there's not enough quality teams at the top right now. I mean, when you lose to Iowa State and you're supposed to be the top team in the conference, that means you can't lose the rest of the season. And they got to play Texas, and they got to play Oklahoma State, and they got to play TCU, and they got to go into the Big 12 championship game. And for Oklahoma State, they've already lost one game as well. At least they lost to TCU. But still, you can't have 2 losses in the Big 12 and go to the playoffs. You just can't. So now it looks like TCU's in the best position, but I don't trust TCU. I mean, come on. Kenny Hill, it's not going to happen. TCU's not going to the playoffs. That's it. I think the Big 12's done. I think the only way, though, is one of those teams will have to run the table. And that means still Oklahoma State. No more losses for either of those two teams. If they can figure out a way to run the table and then win the Big 12 championship game, okay. But that's big. Big loss for the Big 12. All right, we're going to start off with the NFL, though. Again, huge win for Kansas City last night. And look, I think we talked the last show about kind of like the quarter mark. Most teams at that point had played their 4 games. Now it's 5 for most of them. And we were going over which teams that we kind of think, is there a way, because it's still kind of too early to figure out certain teams. And I think we're seeing proof of it from week to week. You don't know what's going on. I mean, Jacksonville destroys Baltimore one week. They come back. They can't beat the Jets. Then they go on the road. They beat Pittsburgh, even though we did pick Jacksonville as our lone upset this week to beat Pittsburgh. But you know why we did that. It had nothing to do with Jacksonville's performance against the Jets. That's for sure. It had to do more with the fact that, as we've said for weeks, there's something wrong with the Steelers. We said that a couple of weeks ago when they were winning. I think it's funny that people now, after the one loss, people now are like, oh my goodness gracious, what's going on with Pittsburgh? Like they're 1-4. But that was, you could see that was coming. And the writing really was on the wall last week. And the funny thing is, they go out and beat Baltimore. And then we all think, and I'm even included, that the way Baltimore's looked the last few weeks, heading into week 5, that, okay, I guess this is done, right? But it wasn't just because of Baltimore not playing well. It was because, all right, well, even though Pittsburgh's not really getting it and they're not playing as good as we know that they can play, come on, I mean, the rest of the division is just not there. So it's got to be Pittsburgh, right, by default. And then all of a sudden, in 1 week, not only does Pittsburgh lose, but Roethlisberger throws 5 interceptions. And now all of a sudden, there's major panic as far as the media is concerned. And then you look at Baltimore, and they go into Oakland, even though there's no car. But they go into they go into Oakland and win the game in a way where you go, this looks like more of the Baltimore team that we saw the first 2 weeks, where they didn't really look awful, like in weeks 3 and 4. I mean, weeks 3 and 4, Baltimore just looked like one of the worst teams in the NFL. So So we still don't really know what we have in Baltimore. But you look at the standings, and we're tied in the AFC North. Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Even though Pittsburgh's got the edge because they beat them. But this is the NFL nowadays. It takes a while to kind of figure things out. But I will say, again, I really do believe that Kansas City, I will be taking Kansas City this week in my futures. I don't know what their odds are yet, what they're going to go down to. We'll find out after tonight's game. But no matter what they are, because they should be the favorite right now. I know New England's been the favorite as well as they should be all year at 4-1, and they won last week, so they're not going to be the favorite. But I could see Kansas City getting down to about 6-1 right now, maybe even 5-1, because that's what they deserve. So even if they're 6-1 or 5-1, I would take Kansas City right now. They've earned it. Now I've not changed my mind performance-wise by Houston. And by the way, they're now 40-1. But of course, what's killing Houston and any real chances they have of winning the Super Bowl is losing Watt. I mean, that is just, it's awful. It's awful. I don't know what else to say. It's just, it's awful. Unless you hate Houston. But it's not good for the NFL. And it looks like J.J. Watt's going to be one of those players. You're not going to be able to rely on J.J. Watt anymore. But hey, we are talking about still a 40-1 shot. We're not talking about Houston being 10-1. That's a big difference. I still think they're definitely, without question, worth doing something because Deshaun Watson's awesome. I mean, you know how I feel about him. 5 more touchdown passes. What can I say? And we really don't know about the Patriots. We talked a little bit about New England on Jets Confidential Radio before because, they won, but 12 penalties. Brady, 30 of 40, 303. But it's like, it's just not the same Patriots. And for the first time this season, even though the Patriots won, I'm starting to believe, you know what? This may not be the year the Patriots win. And as much as they have proven that they're the class, and usually when they get beat, though, it's because other teams that beat them are good teams, or at least there's something good about them. But, you do see exceptions, and I think we saw the exception a couple of years ago with Denver. See, when Seattle won the Super Bowl and beat New England, that was a real good Seattle team. And look, that if you look at the recent Super Bowls, with the exception of the Denver-Carolina one in between, the New England Super Bowls, those were good games, good teams they were going up against. But when Denver beat Carolina, I mean, we all knew going into that Super Bowl, first of all, it was strange that Carolina couldn't lose to anybody all season, which was just weird. And then Cam Newton played terrible in the game and then cried about it afterwards and basically has just started recovering from that now in the last week or two. And with Denver, nothing's changed with Denver. They're still trying to win with great defense. It doesn't seem to matter to them. And again, it's because of the kind of situation we're in the NFL nowadays, where if you're lucky enough, and again, that's why I'm saying, I'm referencing this because maybe this is one of those years that you can have a team like Denver where you've got flaws, but you can win it because the Patriots are just kind of down. They're just not as good as they can be. And I'm sorry, but I've seen enough of the Patriots so far this year that I know for a fact now, in my mind, in my evaluation, and everything that I believe in, that the Patriots aren't going to be capable of changing who they are right now. They don't have the talent on defense. It's not there. And when you I'm sorry, but you look at that defense last year, Sheard, Ninkovich, Long, and Ryan. Those are 4 key veteran players that are not on this team. You throw in Branch is injured, Rivers, who they were going to rely on for some potential pass rushing in the draft, out for the year. McClellan, another guy that put in decent amount of play last year, he's out for the year. Hightower has not been 100% all year. He's been banged up. I mean, that is a lot. You can't replace that unless you've got the talent. I mean, if we're talking about 3 or 4 guys, we're going, okay, this guy's good, that guy's good, okay, all right, I could see that. But you lose Sheard, Ninkovich, Long, Ryan, Branch injured, McClellan out for the year, Hightower banged up. 2 years ago, you get rid of Chandler Jones. You trade Jamie Collins before the deadline last year. And then you replace it with Lawrence Guy, Cassius Marsh, Adam Butler, Eldon Roberts, Jonathan Jones, and the only guy that actually had talent in college, but who really hasn't developed yet in the pros, but Belichick seems to believe that he can become a good player, and maybe he can, is Kyle Van Noy, but he's not that player just yet. This is not, you can't do that and not and get away with it. Now you can do it offensively because I just went over everybody on defense. They haven't made a whole lot of, now yes, they've lost Edelman, we get that, and even didn't have Gronk on Thursday. But as long as you have Brady, same offensive line, you got those running backs, you did bring in Cooks, and you have, of course, solid guys like Hogan and Amendola, you're going to score a lot of points. But you're now not going to be able to stop anybody. And that's not the Patriot team we saw last year. Not even close. So that opens things up. That everybody else gets into it. And that's why the Chiefs right now, the fact that they beat the Patriots one-on-one and they've beaten everybody else and they're looking great. Alex Smith looks like finally the first pick in the NFL draft that we've waited for years, that everybody's waited for years. He looks excellent right now. He's not a joke. He's actually doing it. They are for real. Now, can they keep this up? Will they get any other injuries like other teams? That's yet to be seen. But there is absolutely no doubt right now that the Chiefs are the best team in football. But it's only week 5. Now, again, as I started at the open, what about the AFC North? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Again, other than it's still at this point looking like, even though the Bengals won yesterday, it's going to be Baltimore and Pittsburgh. At least that's what we would think. But I guess you never know. Bengals, even though they won, it wasn't a pretty win. I still don't think they're going to get into it, but Pittsburgh and Baltimore have got to just keep on winning if they can win, because we just don't know exactly what we're going to get out of Pittsburgh moving forward. And that's why, as I mentioned at the open, that we were going to bring in Jeff Hartman. Once again, he is the editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. So let's go to Jeff, and maybe Jeff can help us figure out what's going on in Pittsburgh. Jeff, thanks for talking to us today.
Oh, thanks for having me on again. Appreciate it.
All right, Jeff. So I wanted to get you on because, even a few weeks ago when the Steelers were winning, I kept saying on this network, there's just, okay, yeah, offensively, everybody can see there's something not going on right. But last week was kind of the final nail in the coffin for me. Even though they won, I was just, I knew something was about to happen. That's why Jacksonville was my only upset pick all week. And it wasn't because of anything Jacksonville had done. I just kind of felt something was going on in that locker room with this team. We knew the Big Ben stories. I just felt something was about to come to a head, and it did. So now the question is, can they move past that, or is this going to linger on most of the season? So you've been following this team all your life. You tell me what's going on here. First of all, what's really going on here, and can it be fixed?
Well, that's kind of the $1 million question when it comes to the offense right now, and I don't even know if the players and coaches have the answer to that. What's going on, in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, is this offense, which is so prolific, and they have the playmakers that they have, there's no reason why they should be struggling as they are currently. But I actually think it's a case of there's not enough football to go around. They have no identity. There's no identity with this offense whatsoever. You think about a team like, well, look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, for example. When they come to town, you know exactly what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. They're going to try to run it right down your throat. If you can stop the run and you force Blake Bortles to throw, well, you're probably going to win. The Chicago Bears are the same style of team. Just happens to be Pittsburgh so far this year. You don't know. Or win the ball more. They run Le'Veon Bell 35 times, rushes for 100 touchdowns, and Roethlisberger throws only when he has to. Mm-hmm. He really had a good game. The interception that was that Antonio Brown freakish play, I'm not I hate calling that an interception when it wasn't really a poorly thrown ball.
Sure.
But at the same time, you're thinking this is what it's going to look like from now on. They're a running team. They're going to lean on Le'Veon Bell, and then they go into the game in Jacksonville. And before the pick sixes started, they had thrown the ball, I believe, 30 times and only run it 12. So everyone's saying, oh, well, the game was out of control. That's why they were throwing the ball so much. No, that's not the case. They were throwing the ball way too much, even when it was still in reasonable distance in terms of the game, the score, and the differential. And Le'Veon Bell was asked about it today in his locker room session. They asked him, was the game plan to run the ball? And he said no.
Huh.
So it's stupidity from the coaching staff. I don't even think it's stupidity. I think it's a case of hubris. They think they can do whatever they want against anybody. And, yeah, I get that. But at the same time, you're playing the worst rushing defense in the NFL.
Yep.
And you only rush it 15 times. I don't get that at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think we talked about this in the preseason. This was the reason why this coaching staff is the exact reason why I wasn't sure about Pittsburgh as a Super Bowl contender. Yeah, winning the division maybe again and playoffs again, but I didn't like the coaching in the New England game. Maybe that's rearing its ugly head here. Who knows? But yeah, that doesn't make any sense, especially since the Jets just ran all over the Jags, and everybody knows the Jags their strength is their pass defense. So yeah, maybe it's hubris, maybe it's something else. But do you think was any of it about, well, there's something going on with Big Ben and Antonio, and we got to appease them. We got to make sure that, because Antonio 19 targets, 10 catches. I guess that's okay as long as everybody else is getting their fair share. But it was almost like, okay, we got to make sure that Antonio was happy.
No, I mean, yeah, you can't really disagree with that. I think that what you saw in this game, and the Jacksonville Jaguars players after the game talked about it, how they kind of knew what Pittsburgh was going to do, especially in the passing game, and they got Roethlisberger off his first and second reads. And when things break down, Roethlisberger looks for number 84, and things broke down a lot against the Jaguars. It was just a really unique. It's been a really weird season from an offensive standpoint. I do think it's fixable, though. You asked me that earlier, and I didn't really answer it. I do think that it's fixable. I don't think it's a rift in the locker room. I don't think it's he wants the ball more, that or the other. I honestly think that it's the identity issue. I think it's also in between the ears of Ben Roethlisberger. I think sometimes he's overthinking it. You talk about those RPOs, the run pass options. He's not making the right call on a lot of those. It's a lot of different things, but I do think it's fixable. They just have to buy into one scheme, one style of play, and just roll with it.
Yeah.
And see what happens. And so everyone remembers the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger as that great play action team. I think they have, going into this Week 5 game, they ran play action the least in the National Football League. It's just really strange. I wouldn't be shocked if they scrap it all together and start going with more up-tempo, more no-huddle looks. It just seems to be what they do when they struggle, and it seems to work. So we'll be interested to see what they do. I do think it's fixable, though. For fans out there wondering, I do think it is.
Well, what about Roethlisberger? Because isn't that really also part of the question, is whether or not, I mean, every week it's something else, and now what? He's saying that he wonders whether he's got it left. Is there a confidence issue? Does it have to do with the retirement? Is there an ego situation going on in the clubhouse? Because if it is going to be fixable, then it's got to start with Big Ben, because he's the one that really drives this team. And even though we know Bell and how great and dynamic he can be, but this is a quarterback-driven league, so if they're going to have a shot, then he's got to be at the top of his game again. And do you think that can happen?
Yeah, I do. I do. I mean, he had a tremendous training camp and preseason even. All reports out of Latrobe were glowing. He was throwing the ball really well. I think that it's a scheme thing. But the whole comment that Roethlisberger made, and I and every other Steelers outlet wrote the article about when he said, maybe I don't have it anymore. If you watch the actual clip or hear the audio of that, but mainly the video, that was really kind of said in jest.
Tongue in cheek, yeah, that's what I figured.
Roethlisberger did not want to answer questions. You have to, especially after you throw 5 interceptions. And when he was asked about that, he goes, I don't know, maybe I don't have it anymore. And you write the article, everyone wrote the article, and I'm sure that he's going to be asked about it tomorrow at his weekly radio spot, which has become a very controversial thing. But I think that this will fuel Ben Roethlisberger. The question is, can he get over the hump? He's done this before. He's had really bad games, and he almost always bounces back. But the question isn't, will he play well in Kansas City? Because I would put a lot of money down that he's going to play really well in Kansas City. The question is, can they keep that consistent for the rest of the season? Can they improve to the point where this team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender? Because right now, they might not even be a contender to win the division, let alone the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that the weakness of this team the last few years, the weakness in losing to the Patriots in the championship game last year was the defense. And even though there's talent on defense, especially up front, fact is that that's the kind of final piece, supposedly, and yet that's been kind of what's been holding them together. With even though they've been winning, it's not like the offense has been great yet. So there's that. I mean, what have you seen out of the defense this year that explains why they're playing a lot better than we've seen them in recent years?
Well, this defense, compared to past defenses, very fast and very athletic. The only problem with that is it's a double-edged sword. When you have guys like Ryan Shazier, who is faster than most wide receivers in the National Football League, when he shoots the gap, he's going 100 miles an hour. The problem is that if he picks the wrong gap or he blows by the running back, it's a big play going the other way. They over pursue a lot. I feel like the tackling isn't where it should be. And I got to be honest with you. Everyone, when they talk about the Steelers' defense going into the season, it was all about the secondary. And, yeah, they ship Ross Cockrell away. They bring in Joe Hayden, which is a huge upgrade. Mike Hilton's been playing his butt off as a first-year player, essentially, as the dime cornerback. And Artie Burns is still learning that this defense has not been tested. They have been on the ground. You look at what happened in Chicago and then what happened at Heinz Field Sunday. They certainly have given up their yards on the ground. Although before that fourth quarter Fournette run, they kind of kept him in check. He was averaging about 3 yards a carry. But still, this secondary, which has always been what everyone envisions as the Achilles heel of the defense, it's going to be tested in a big way coming up. I mean, you think about the 3 games they have before their bye: Kansas City next week, then Matthew Stafford, and then the Bengals in week 7 before they actually go into the bye week. They're going to find out about this defense coming up. And then after the bye, you have teams like Patriots, you have the Packers still. We're going to see a lot about this. We're going to learn a lot about the Steelers defense. And the scary thing is that this defense has kept this team afloat so far. If the offense doesn't pick it up, what's going to happen if the defense kind of comes back down to earth? It could be ugly, but a lot of people are thinking the Steelers defense has kind of turned the corner. If they can stop the run, I agree with it.
Yeah, well, look, that's what's great about the NFL, especially early on in the season. If Pittsburgh does beat Kansas City next week and they go out and they have their best game offensively, everything, all the past issues are behind them, and all of a sudden Pittsburgh's back to being the team to beat, or one of the very few select teams to beat. It can change that quickly, or as you said, if it's a tough schedule coming up, especially the next couple of weeks, starting with Kansas City, then maybe it just keeps some of the issues afloat. What are the fans saying before I let you go, Jeff? In general, how are the fans taking it? What's the main concerns as far as and again, look, they're kind of used to. I mean, it's not like they're the Patriots winning Super Bowls, but they're used to winning. And they've also had some down issues at times, but they've also, in general, they've seen this team. They're a resilient bunch as long as Roethlisberger's been there. So, is there any panicking going on?
Oh yeah. The Steeler fans are very quick to hit the panic button. You lose at home like that, and Roethlisberger's interceptions. Although if you go back and watch those interceptions, and some of them were hit passes. I mean, it's bad and it looks bad, but at the same time, they weren't all errant throws, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But a lot of fans, you have the knee-jerk fans that want Todd Haley replaced. They look at places like Cincinnati and even Baltimore a few years back, where they fired a coordinator mid-season, and it kind of sparked the team and gave them a new sense of ownership or whatnot. There's people that want Haley gone. There's people that there's always people that want Tomlin fired. But ultimately, I think that the underlying theme amongst all Steeler fans is just a really just constant disappointment with the offense. And the defense is outperforming expectations. And no one expected them to be this good. The offense, I mean, it's so bad, and it's rightfully so. Rightfully so, the fans are upset. I mean, there's no reason why Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant, I could go on, Juju Smith-Schuster, should be this bad. There's just no reason, and I think that's the biggest disappointment so far. Is they were winning, but they were ugly. At some point, the fan base is going to want to see their killer bees actually play the way they're capable. The question is whether it'll happen. I don't know.
All right, Jeff. So thanks for checking in with us. Again, you guys have a bye in a few weeks. Maybe we'll get an opportunity to talk to you again at that point in time. So once again, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. For any of the Steeler fans out there, check it out. Jeff, appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks for having me.
You got it. Take care. That's Jeff Hartman. And that is our coverage of the Pittsburgh Steelers for the show and the AFC North for this week. We might have some AFC North coverage next week. I know Matthew Stevens, who covers the Ravens, we're going to try to get him on. Wanted to get him on this week, but probably wait till next week. Find out what's going on here with Baltimore, because again, I'm also kind of clueless as how to grade everything that's going on with the Ravens too. All right. Also, let's take a look. By the way, again, the Ravens got the win over Oakland, and E.J. Manuel kind of looked like we thought E.J. Manuel would look, but the defense did not come through, and they turned over the ball inappropriately, including a fumble recovery touchdown, which really, by the way, Jared Cook, thank you very much. What have I said about Jared Cook? And Baltimore was able to actually look pretty decent on offense, which is. It's going somewhere, considering where they had been. So it's a good step in the right direction. If you're a Raven fan, we'll find out whether or not that's just a 1 week deal, because the Raiders are now one of those teams that just look completely lost. Everybody thought this team was ready to compete for an AFC championship. No reason to think after the first 2 weeks, 2-0, that was going to change. And even before Carr got hurt, things also started going wrong in Oakland. So, look, that hasn't changed because of Carr's injury. Nobody knows what's happening there, but it can go by real fast. And if Carr does not come back, no idea if he's going to come back next week or not. They lose another week or two, they could be done. It could be a hole that they just can't climb out of. Speaking of holes to not climb out of, there were several games this week that were absolutely unwatchable. Miami beating Tennessee was one of them, and the Giants losing to the Chargers was another. I mean, just unwatchable games. The Dolphins won the game with 178 yards of total offense. And their only touchdown was a defensive touchdown. And that's the team that didn't have Matt Castle. So what have I said about Tennessee and Mike Mularkey? That they're if they want to get real about advancing and being a real playoff and Super Bowl contender down the road, they've got to move on from Mike Mularkey. And they just don't get it. The only reason that they actually can be competitive from week to week when Mariota is healthy is because of the talent at quarterback and some of the skill position players. But as soon as that goes off the rail, then this is what they look like. They can't beat anybody. Well, they basically can't beat anybody when they have some of their, Mariota's out and they have to rely on Mark Mularkey's, his coaching acumen. It's not possible. And you can't even beat Miami with the way that they were playing. And the Giants, the Giants looked like they were about to win finally, and then Beckham gets hurt. They got the lead. Beckham gets hurt. As soon as Beckham was gone, it was like the team just froze. What an ugly game that was. And both teams are going nowhere. Giants are officially dead. I guess the Sean Payton watch now is officially on. That all depends on exactly if New Orleans just, I don't know. Who knows? Follow the Saints this season, and I'm sure we'll start hearing more about Sean Payton to the Giants. Green Bay, of course, that's the big story with their win over the Cowboys. And was anybody surprised of that result? No. I mean, I actually was thinking that, you know what? If I'm taking the game, maybe I take Dallas. But then the reason I took Green Bay was exactly from what we saw. Because this is what we saw in the playoff game last year. This is what we always see when these two teams get together. Is that somehow, some way, the Cowboys allow Aaron Rodgers to have the ball last. And as soon as that happened, you knew that the Packers were more than likely going to win. And by the way, just like the Chiefs, now, I think the Packers are worth taking for Super Bowl futures. And you know why that is? It's my boy Aaron Jones. Because Aaron Jones looked pretty damn good in that game. And that's what happens when everybody pays attention to Aaron Rodgers. It also helps when Balaga's in the lineup. So if they get Bakhtiari back, in there soon, you got all the receivers. You got Rodgers. This is going to be a lethal offense now. And the defense still is an issue. Okay, I get that. But remember, they don't right now have to face last year's Patriot team if they get to the Super Bowl. But the defense still has to play better because the only reason the Cowboys lost the game is because the Packers had the ball last. I mean, the Packers were not going to stop the Cowboys. It was just like the playoff game last year. They were not going to stop the Cowboys. And everything they did to try to fix that secondary, okay, they got Randall with a pick six. Yeah, but you know what? Randall's had a bad year. He hasn't done anything. That's the only thing he did. Finally, he does something at least. But the reason why the Packers now legitimately have a chance, I think, is two reasons. One, because the Patriots are no longer like dynasty mode. And two, there's balance on offense. And if you listened to us last week, matter of fact, if you listened to us on our fantasy show, not last week, but the week prior after that Chicago-Green Bay game, when we were talking about the running back situation for the Packers, we specifically said, go ahead and get Aaron Jones. We referenced him from the beginning of the season when, matter of fact, we put out a report at Ourlads regarding top rookie sleepers to keep an eye on, and he was on that list. And so keep an eye on him, pick him up in the drafts. Now, we did not know if he was going to start this week until the last day or two, but as soon as he got an opportunity to start, he was a must play, and he looked awesome. And I said this last week after his game, is that he looked a little bit tentative early on, as any rookie would. But then as soon as he started getting a little comfortable, he started feeling confident in his running, and you could see it. And boy, did you see it against the Cowboys. He looked like a seasoned veteran running against the Cowboys in that game. I don't care. I know the Cowboys aren't a great defensive team. I get that. But boy, did he look good. There is no way that the Packers, even though, look, I don't trust Mike McCarthy either, but there's no way Mike McCarthy can go back to Ty Montgomery right now. If Ty Montgomery's healthy, okay, fine, Ty, well, you'll split some carries, but Aaron Jones needs to be the starting running back of this team. He is clearly the best running back on that team right now. But you never know. Hey, Montgomery's been around an extra year or two. Look, I have to deal with this with the Jets, with the whole Matt Forte thing. And I know somebody that knows all about that is Jamal Murphy, who is OFN's chief fantasy analyst and joining us to talk fantasy football. And I don't know about you, Jamal, but I've seen enough of Aaron Jones to know from watching him in college. That's the reason I was high on him as a sleeper coming into the NFL. And he landed in a perfect spot on a team with a great historic quarterback that everybody has to pay attention to. And the fact that nobody really can pay attention to Aaron Jones will open things up for the running game. And if he continues to show what he showed against the Cowboys as far as just his confidence in his running, that this can actually be a very huge deal for the Packers offense moving forward.
Yeah. What's up? What's up, Greg? What's going on?
Yeah, Jet fan.
Good. Good to be here. Yeah,
good to be 3-2,
fan, like you said. But no, Jones. He definitely looked the part. He's taking advantage of the responsibility. He looks like a real running back out there. Put up big numbers, and Ty Montgomery is he was a wide receiver playing running back.
Receiver,
so,
forced to play running back. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's, he's not a natural running back. I'm sure when he gets back he's going to at least split carries, which is fine. Jones is a rookie. But it might be a while before Montgomery is at full strength with those ribs.
Yeah, and that's a trick, of course, with the fantasy game, is that when Montgomery is ready to come back, we're just not going to know how that's going to take away from Aaron Jones. And I think that's the only thing that would be the only reason why I wouldn't go crazy. Like if I knew that Montgomery wasn't going to be in the picture, boy, I would feel real confident that Aaron Jones is going to have these kind of weeks, like a lot. But you just don't know moving forward. I mean, you can pick up Aaron Jones. Obviously, everybody has. But it'd be one thing. It's another thing than to hope that another owner might be like, well, I don't really trust Aaron Jones, so I'm willing to trade him now and get something in return for him. I'm not so sure though that I'd be willing to give up a whole lot because I just don't know. I mean, I don't trust that Mike McCarthy would make the right move.
Yeah, I mean, it's Montgomery. He started the season as their running back. There's probably some sort of loyalty there. He proved himself last year. He was doing a good job this year also. But like you said, Jones just looks like the more natural guy because he's an actual running back, so it makes perfect sense. He's bigger, and he's played well. We'll see what happens moving forward. Injuries happen too. He could get injured. I mean, it's so much in flux. Also, you got Jamal Williams in the mix, so Green Bay is kind of a dicey situation fantasy-wise.
Well, same thing with the Jets because Powell's injury. Now we don't know what's going to happen at this point, but there were probably a lot of owners who, after what happened last week, decided not only to pick up Powell and McGuire, but I got to believe there were owners based on the injury and the production of the other two running backs that decided to drop Forte.
Yeah, so people who were patient and decided to hold on to Forte just in case look good right now. Right, I mean they're saying Bilal Powell. They're saying it's day-to-day calf injury. We don't know what's up with that. Forte is probably going to be ready to come back at some point. He's going to come back. He's still on the team. He was injured. He was going to come back and be in the mix at some point. And it might be this coming week. But we did see. Against the Browns is that he's still going to get his opportunities because McGuire is a scat back for at this point. That's what he is. He's not going to get a whole bunch of first, second down rushing opportunities. That was Powell, and if Powell's hurt and Forte's ready to go, Forte's going to be right back in the mix getting carries.
Sticking at running back, let's and stay in New York because last week we were talking about Gallman and that they should definitely start giving him a chance, and they did, and he played well, but he also went back to Darkwa, and so Darkwa and Gallman both produced in the game, and a matter of fact they combined for 126 yards rushing, with Darkwa getting 69 and a touchdown. So, but again, the Giants are a mess. But Darkwa now, he's somebody you should pick up. Yes, no, depending.
Yeah,
on your
I think
situation.
so. He was a deep sleeper. A week or 2 weeks ago, before he got injured. I mean, you could just tell. It started out with Perkins, and Darkwa was backing Perkins up, and Perkins has been a total disaster back there when he was healthy. Darkwa at that time, even week 2, week 3 was running harder than Perkins. He looked like the better back. Then he got hurt, had a back issue himself. Of course, Gallman looked good. Also, like you said, both of those running backs look good. The problem with Darkwa is he can't catch. And the Giants love to pass. So Gallman probably gets more snaps because he's more versatile. He caught 5 passes last week to go along with those 57 yards rushing. Darkwa, like you said, played well. 8 carries, 69 yards, and a touchdown. I think Darkwa's still going to get carries, but Gallman probably sees more time because he's more versatile.
All right. Staying with running backs, Marlon Mack. I actually drafted Marlon Mack and then dropped him because he wasn't doing anything. He got hurt in my other league. And now look, a couple of things here. First of all, he really has been hurt until basically this past week. Then he comes in and statistically eye-opening, 91 yards rushing and a touchdown. So you got to go, okay. Now, because the Colts offense seems to be going better, Brissett's more comfortable. We're even seeing T.Y. Hilton have big weeks. Is this time to get confident again in Marlon Mack? But if you closer look at that, he was able to get 9 carries, 91 yards on 17 plays. So he didn't play much.
Right, but he produced for sure while he was in there. As you said, if you watched any of the games, you saw him. He looked impressive, running hard, breaking tackles. Looked very, very spry. I think you got to jump on him now, especially like me. If you have Gore in a couple leagues, which I do,
oh yeah,
you got to run and try to get him, as a handicap. But even more than that, he's going to get carries now. I don't know if he's going to quite split with Gore. Gore's still the trusted veteran back there, and he's still productive to a certain point. But Mack is the explosive guy, and they have to keep him involved. And I don't know why you wouldn't. Like you said, 9 rushes, 91 yards, long touchdown run. He's proven himself now, and I think he only becomes more a part of the offense as the season goes by.
Well, again, you know how these coaches are. Well, I can't sit Frank Gore. The guy is only like what, 30 something, and
34 at least.
Yeah, and even though he's serviceable, he's not young. He's like Forte. So why would I go to the younger guy that was faster and has a little bit more game breaking ability? So until the Colts decide to do that, but maybe that time will come, or maybe Gore gets hurt. So Mack becomes an easy pickup this week, and I don't think there's any question that people will be doing that. What about what's going on with the opposition in that game with Carlos Hyde? Because San Francisco seemed to be like, okay, well, we're going to play Breida in the game late, and even though Hyde got opportunities early, Breida played late. Another player that we talked about preseason as a rookie to watch. And the question now, Hyde's not a veteran, like an old guy like Gore,
right.
But something's going on there. But this is a new staff too. They brought in Breida as an undrafted free agent. They did not. This was not the staff that brought in Hyde.
Right. I mean, time is going to tell there. You gotta see how that plays out. I think right now, you still got to think Hyde's the guy there. And who knows if was an injury situation.
Who would you pick up as far as the running backs I just mentioned between Breida, Darkwa, or Mack? First,
I would say
Mack. Okay.
Mack and Darkwa. I would go Mack and Darkwa. I would wait on the 49ers situation. Give it one more week to see how it plays out. I don't trust Breida yet, but definitely I think you got to jump on Mack because he was the most explosive of the three. He looked the best on the field. He looked like he belonged, had confidence, and he had the numbers to back it up. So I would go Mack and then Darkwa.
All right. Also, taking a look at the tight end position, that's something that we talk about a lot, especially in leagues like the league that we're in together, where you have to play a tight end. And hey, maybe I think Dan. I don't know if Dan took our advice and picked up Jenkins, but if he did, he gave him a touchdown. I forget which league he needed a tight end in. But you look at some of the tight ends that continue to play well at times that have made a name for themselves. But we'll start, first of all, with a guy that I know that you highlighted last week in one of your reports at Ourlads.com is Charles Clay. And maybe that was the jinx there because Clay gets hurt. So now he may be out for a couple of weeks, which is a huge blow to Buffalo's offense because Clay has basically been the big guy on offense for Taylor. So what do you do if Clay's your starting tight end? First of all, do you even look at Nick O'Leary, who replaced Clay and actually put up about 50 yards? So who knows, again, if maybe that's what Taylor wants to do. And then you take a look at other tight ends, and Dixon had a game of his life. And who knows if he's ever going to do anything even remotely close to that again with 175 on 5 catches. You got Tyler Higbee, who has been replacing Gerald Everett lately, who had a very good college career at Western Kentucky. In his last 2 games combined, 145 yards receiving. You also have another rookie. Kittle had a big game late for San Francisco, including the game-tying touchdown. So we've got some tight ends making news, and let's throw in our boy, Hunter Henry, again. By the way, Hunter Henry for the season was 6% behind Gates in average snaps per game. And in the game against the Giants, he had 76% to Gates' 53%. So for the first time, Henry played more than Gates. Henry had another touchdown. So is it also time now to look at Hunter Henry?
Yeah, I mean, at least Hunter Henry has has history. He has produced in previous years, so he's definitely a guy. Now that he's getting more snaps, like you said, it's definitely time to look at him seriously. Obviously, the Clay owners, such as myself in the league, have to start looking other places. Dixon, I had highlighted a couple weeks ago when Olsen first went down, thinking that he might play a part. And that first week he was a dud. I don't think he even got a target. So he kind of fell off the radar a little bit. He produced a little bit the week before this last one, but so I actually picked him up in the league going into this week, and I had started having second thoughts, and I dropped him, picked up Tyler Croft, and that didn't quite pay off because Dixon went off. So I think Cam is revitalized. It looks like so maybe Dixon plays a bigger role. I think he's definitely someone you got to look at closely for next week. Like I said, Tyler Croft has been playing well in Tyler Eifert's, while Tyler Eifert's been gone. So there are definitely options at tight end. Kittle, like you said, in San Francisco, you got to look at him. O'Leary with Buffalo, he's the next guy up. We haven't seen much of him. He did produce a little bit after Clay went down, but I would say in that situation, I think I like Hunter Henry the best. I agree with you there. I like Hunter Henry the best, and I would say Dixon just because of Cam's, resurgence.
Yeah, as far as Higbee, I mean, he would be interesting just because the Rams have offense. Even
Right.
though it had its worst offensive week of the year, Goff did not have his best game, and they basically gave that game away to Seattle.
No, you're right. I actually forgot about Higbee. Higbee, I think I might put ahead of Dixon. So I like Higbee a lot, actually.
Yeah, they're a young team, and maybe he is starting to now get more involved with the offense, and he could be somebody to definitely keep an eye on. What about, by the way, what about a guy like Dion Lewis? Now, Lewis we haven't heard a lot about, and the Patriots have all these guys, interchangeable parts, especially the running backs. But Lewis actually started to get a little bit of playing time in the game against the Patriots. But we don't know whether or not that's just a 1 week thing or whether it's because he's maybe a lot healthier than he's been. He's always had some, injury concerns over his career. Would you take a chance on a guy like Dion Lewis, knowing that it could be a home run, taking a chance because you're going to be with the Patriots offense?
Right. And, the Patriots always so unpredictable with the running back situation. Belichick, you just never know which way he's going to go. You're right. He had his best rushing performance of the season, 53 yards. He got 7 carries. White was still involved. He was heavily involved in the passing game, had 7 catches, 57 yards. So you just don't know. Sometimes they interchange. Sometimes Lewis gets he gets involved in the passing game and not in the running game. Sometimes he's a rusher, not a receiver. I think he's worth having on your roster in a deep league, like a 14-team league, maybe a 12-team league. But I mean, like I said, it's just the Pats are just so unpredictable, and it's not like he's putting up huge numbers yet. So unless there's an injury to one of the other backs, Lewis is. You might want to have him on your roster just in case of that, but you don't start him anytime soon.
All right, and then finally receivers. The big story is going to be Odell Beckham, and he's now done for the year. Throw on top of that Marshall's injury and Shepard's injury. So,
Right.
But you don't know about those guys. Now, those guys, do they become options if they're going to be okay, or do you prefer to look elsewhere? Because the Beckham injury is a big one because this is a first-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, the Beckham injury is a killer, especially the Beckham. And he was trying to make some money in the contract year coming up.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Shepard and Marshall, if they're healthy, are definitely options. But we're talking about both of them probably miss at least a week, maybe a couple. So you got to wait for them to come back. I wouldn't drop either one of them, because they will be a big part once they come back. If the Giants are still trying to play they're not going to be playing for anything, but hopefully they're still playing hard at that point. They're 0-5. They're at Denver next week, so I mean you're looking at 0-6. They have Roger Lewis. He was the only wide receiver left standing for the Giants after Sunday's game, which I've never seen anything like that. Their top 3 wide receivers went down. Dwayne Harris, probably their 4th guy, went down. So Roger Lewis, who had a touchdown on on Sunday, I think he's a must pick up because he had it. Eli has some kind of chemistry with him. He's definitely the best thing they have, and Eli's going to still throw the ball a good 30, 40 times a game. We know that, so it's got to go to someone. So Lewis is probably not even a sneak anymore, but he's probably going to put up bigger numbers than people think.
All right. And as far as any other options, can you look at somebody like John Brown, who's just starting to get healthy again? He played most of the game for Arizona, had a touchdown reception. Even though that Arizona offense, boy, what a difference. Even though offensive line, but then you throw in Johnson, and it's like night and day. But they got some confidence issues at Arizona right now. But John Brown is definitely established as the second best receiver on that team. It's just that he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And then, of course, let's also mention Danny Amendola, because we're speaking of Patriots. I mean, 23 of 27 targets this season. He averages about almost 70 yards a game. Only one touchdown, though. And again, he got a lot of he seems like a guy that's going to get a lot of catches, but may not be a specific end zone guy, which is the problem. But he also at least returns punts. So what about those receivers? And let's also throw in Will Fuller, who we talked about last week and had 2 more touchdowns. And that's just because Deshaun Watson's awesome.
You're right about that. I mean, Watson absolutely kills me, I think, at least in one league. I mean, I'm playing against him. And, I'm thinking that he's been held in check in the first half, and then he just goes off and ends up with 5 touchdowns. So was it 4 or 5? I can't remember.
5.
Oh, so anyway, yeah, that really hurt me. But yeah, so Fuller's you got to pick him up, no question about that. And I like Amendola, especially while he's healthy. He's injury prone, has a lot concussion history. While he's healthy, I think you might want to roll with him. He's going to get opportunities. He definitely, him and Brady definitely have a connection. John Brown, worth a look in deeper leagues, like you said. He came into the season, supposed to be the second best receiver on that team. And, due to injury, Jaron Brown probably moved ahead of him. But yesterday, he's had 2 straight games healthy now. Had 7 targets. Only caught two passes for 26 yards, but one of them was a touchdown. You look at Jaron Brown, had 3 for 39, 6 targets. So it looks like John Brown will be in the mix more and more as the season goes on.
All right, so we'll talk to you again on Thursday night for our fantasy show. Anything for tonight's game, Chicago and Minnesota? What do we look at the Minnesota receivers? Is that it? And what's up with Bradford, by the way?
Well, Bradford was supposed to play, as far as I know, during the week. I haven't heard anything change. Looked like he practiced all week, so the knee was feeling better, and that's huge news for his receivers, especially Diggs, who has a lot of big play capability. So you got to look there. And then the other things with Chicago, Trubisky, we get to see what that's all about. And Watson has performed so well. You never know. Maybe there's another rookie quarterback that can do something.
That's true. Yeah, unfortunately, even though I did pick up Bradford in our league because I needed a backup, and I would have taken Alex Smith, but he's got the same bye week. So I went with Aaron Rodgers. So I went with Bradford, and I was like, you know what? That's something I might have to think about anyway with Alex Smith. I know having 3 quarterbacks on the roster may be too much. But still, I mean, Alex Smith has just been playing so awesome, like Deshaun Watson, that I can't even imagine why he would still be around anymore and available.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's obviously more than a fluke. He's been solid his whole career, but he seems to be peaking later on. I mean, he looks very comfortable. They're 5-0, playing very well. You got to take him seriously, and he's gonna put up these type of numbers. He has some weapons around him. That he can use, and while those guys are healthy, he's gonna put up serious numbers. So yeah, that's a situation where if he's available in your league, I think you do pick him up and stash him. If you have 2 quarterbacks already, anything can happen in the NFL.
Yeah.
Next week you could be in need of a quarterback.
And then you could also someone else can have a quarterback injury, and then you can trade one of your quarterbacks and still have 2.
Right. No question about it.
All right, Jamal. So enjoy the game tonight, even though most people won't. And we'll talk to you on Thursday, and we'll be that much closer to getting psyched up about an actual Jet-Patriot game, if you can believe it.
Yeah, can you believe it? Jets
No.
Patriots actually for first place in the AFC?
Yes.
Enjoy it while we got it.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. Yes. Thanks, Jamal.
All right.
Take care. All right. That's Jamal Murphy, OFN, Ourlads.com, chief fantasy analyst. You can check out. He's got 3 articles a week, including waiver wire pickup, start a sit-em, injury reports that are available at Ourlads.com every week. And, of course, our fantasy show on Thursdays with Dan Weinrich and yours truly. Okay, quickly, some more notes in the NFL. What else do we got? Where are we? Okay, Buffalo, they were playing well, but they're I don't know if you want to call it luck, but things just, I mean, we eventually knew that you can't keep winning the way that they were winning. Even though they had a shot, they forced 3 more turnovers against the Bengals, but they just couldn't get it done. A.J. Green had a big game. We haven't seen that in a while. And he did it against Trey Davis-White, who had been probably one of the top defensive rookies in the NFL at this point. But that's what's going to happen when you're going to go one-on-one with A.J. Green. And one of the big problems that Buffalo's facing also is that Zay Jones, another rookie second-round draft pick, has not been able to figure anything out with Tyrod Taylor. He's got 5 receptions on 23 targets. That's just unbelievably bad. So with Clay injury, Buffalo's in a lot of bad shape right now, even though they're 3-2. For the Bengals, we'll see. I mean, look, overtime Packers road, clobbered the Browns, and beat the Bills. So maybe we shouldn't discount the Bengals just yet. Every time we seem to do that, they actually surprise us. So if Baltimore and Pittsburgh don't get their act together, watch out for Cincinnati. Again, the Jets beat Cleveland. We talked all about that on Jets Confidential Radio. That show will be on demand a little bit later on. Let's see. Again, the Giants-Chargers game was just miserable to watch. 21 combined penalties. Both quarterbacks, especially Phillip Rivers. Rivers was under 50% passing. It was an ugly game, but the Chargers were able to win, and really they won the game, as I mentioned before, because of Beckham's injury really turned the tide there. Niners lost their second straight overtime game. Give them credit for coming back late in the game for tying it. But the Colts, Jacoby Brissett is starting to grow up. He is now definitely a solid number 2 quarterback. I don't know if he's got what it takes to be a starter in the NFL, but he definitely now has what it takes to be a backup in the NFL. And by the way, a couple of kickers to keep an eye on in your fantasy lineups this week or free agency. You've got Adam Vinatieri, who's always reliable, and now that the Colts are starting to move the ball a little bit, he was 4 for 4 plus the game winner. And Harrison Butker, the kicker for the Chiefs, went 5 for 5. So he's definitely, with that offense, somebody that you want to keep an eye on. All right. Also, Carolina and Detroit, nice win for Carolina. I can't even believe that the Panthers are where they are right now at 4-1, because they don't seem like they're a 4-1 team, but they're getting it done. And what's more important is the way that they've looked the last couple of weeks, because now Cam Newton is starting to look like the old Cam Newton. We kind of knew that more and more game action would get him back into being the old, his old self. He had a huge game, even though it wasn't a very pretty game. I mean, the Panthers had 11 penalties. They only rushed 28 yards on 28 carries. I think it's time to start getting McCaffrey involved in the running game as well. Too much James Stewart at this point of his career is not going to really – I mean, come on. I mean, again, another one of these situations where you're trying to rely on older guys, especially at the running back position, the Matt Fortes, the James Stewarts, the Frank Gores. I mean, you got to move on to the younger guys, because look at the younger guys when they're given a chance, whether it's the Elijah McGuires or the Aaron Joneses or the Marlon Macks or especially the Kareem Hunts. Remember I told you, which I know is true, that if Kansas City's number 1 running back did not get hurt before the season, that Hunt would not have started opening day. There's no doubt in my mind he was the backup. And look what happens because of an injury to a guy that really, talent-wise, doesn't have anything on Kareem Hunt. But that's the way it is in the NFL with these coaches and relying on veteran players. It drives you crazy. Eagles, big blowout win over Arizona, which is not a surprise based on the way both teams were playing. So Eagles and Carolina, huge Thursday night game to talk about on Thursday when we do our fantasy show prior to the game on Thursday night. Boy, Carson Wentz is the backup on one of my fantasy teams, and I got to start seriously thinking about him as a starter right now. 4 touchdowns in the game. And you know what? I've hammered Nelson Aguilar the last couple of years because, you know what? Bottom line is he's really been hammerable. But he is woken up. He is now looking more like the receiver that we saw in college, and maybe he's now ready to change his career. So good start to the season for Aguilar. He's been their number 1 receiver. And maybe some of it has to do with the fact that Wentz knows Aguilar from last year because he didn't know Jeffrey and he didn't know Torrey Smith. I'm sure that does have something to do with it. But anyway, that's helped out Carson Wentz in that offense. I kind of like the Panthers in the game against the Eagles because I still think they're a little bit better. I'm still not completely sold at the Eagles because I still that defense not getting enough turnovers, and as sooner or later that's what's going to be a difference for them. They got to be able to turn the game defensively, and they're not doing enough of that. I mean, if you can't get pressure and cause turnovers on the Chargers in Arizona, I don't know who you're going to do it against based on how bad their offensive lines are. So that's still a problem for me. But hey, they're winning, and if they can beat Carolina, I think it'll prove to me that they're in it for the long haul. But I kind of like Carolina in that one. Mentioned before, the Rams let one slip away against Seattle. That's just awful. I mean, 5 turnovers. It started with Gurley and the end zone turnover. I hate that turnover. It drives me nuts. I've had it happen against me more, like 75% of the time than it's happened for me. It drives me crazy. It's a momentum changer. If Gurley scores a touchdown there early in the game, all the momentum of the Rams, they're feeling great about themselves. They're on a hot streak. We're going to beat this team. And then all of a sudden you give 7 points away in a low-scoring game like that is a killer. And they never really recovered from it. They almost got the win at the end, but Goff just missed Cooper Kupp by about 2 inches for the touchdown, the game winner. Even through 5 turnovers, the Rams almost won that game. So they'll grow up from this. It's one of those losses that you kind of do say, you know what, as long as they get better, they will be better than Seattle, because Seattle, they have to play better. I mean, they do not look good. Their offensive line is a disaster. They're getting nothing out of their running game now with Carson out. I don't see Seattle changing. Just like I said with New England, I'm sorry, I don't see Seattle's offense changing. How is it going to change? I mean, if they're going to keep giving Eddie Lacy touches, then they're asking for it. They really are. They're asking for it because they're not going to get anywhere with Eddie Lacy. They shouldn't play him at all. They should at least either give Thomas Rawls clear touches, give him 15 a game, or bring another running back in. Bring someone else in. I mean, there are a dime a dozen out there. Bring another running back in from another team. Trade somebody. You just made a trade with the Jets for this year. Make another trade. You're trying to win a Super Bowl, right? You got to bring in a fast running back. If you don't trust Thomas Rawls, because you definitely shouldn't trust Eddie Lacy, then bring in another running back. Or else it's going to be a long season offensively for Seattle. What else? Actually, I don't know if there's that's it. I think that's it for the NFL. Yeah, I think that's it for the NFL. So we'll talk more about the NFL though on Wednesday with Dan Shanka, and of course Thursday in our Week 6 preview with Tony Mejia, and then we'll talk some fantasy as well on Thursday night with the boys. But we'll preview that Philadelphia Carolina game on Thursday afternoon with Tony on OFN. On OFN NFL preview. So looking forward to that. Some other big games coming up this week. In college football, as I mentioned, Oklahoma loses, so the Big 12's in big trouble. Also, as far as the big games this past week, I tweeted this out the other day. Look, I've said this on Saturday. I've said this, as you know, going back to last year, and I've said it all preseason, and I've been saying it all season. What in the world is Jim Harbaugh waiting for to allow one of the kids, either Peters or now McCaffrey, to play? And how on earth did he not insert Peters in that game on Saturday? I can't believe that he allowed O'Korn to go out there. Time in and time out and turnovers and turnovers and turnovers, and he wouldn't go to Peters in a game that was there for the taking. I don't understand it. Now, Jim Harbaugh is going to win a championship at Michigan and maybe more. And the reason is is because there will be a Peters and there will be a McCaffrey. And because he'll be able to recruit 5-star quarterbacks every year, he'll eventually get there. Problem is because he just got there and he's relying on veteran quarterbacks, it's killing the team. So in time, the young, talented quarterbacks will take over at Michigan. And when it happens, then the rest of the country better watch out. But for some reason, Jim Harbaugh can't, as a head coach, he doesn't know what he's doing at the quarterback position as far as who to insert and who not to, and who to rely on and who to take a chance with. And I've been saying it all season, and it finally came back to bite him. Awful, absolutely awful. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he said, "Oh no, I didn't even know I didn't even want to hear it. I didn't even know what his press conference was." And I haven't even read anything today about it. But I can almost assure you that he'll probably say something along the lines of, "Oh yeah, O'Korn's my starter." Instead of saying, because they're playing some weak team this week, instead of just going, "Okay, we're going to go to Peters, or we're going to have a competition this week," and then go to Peters and let him play against some bad team and get ready for Penn State. If he keeps going with O'Korn, they're going to get destroyed by Penn State. So in one way, it'll be helpful for my bank account, because if he allows O'Korn to play Penn State, and that game is like a couple of points either way, which it probably will be, well, you rest assured, you know what I'll be doing. Because my Penn State Nittany Lions, the team that I picked to win the national championship, cruised against Northwestern. And my other pick as a nice sleeper pick 2 weeks ago at 33-1 to win the national championship and play in the Big Ten championship with a shot at the playoffs is Wisconsin. They look good against Nebraska. So I'm really psyched about what's going on with Penn State and Wisconsin. I'm also continuing to be psyched what's going on with Georgia, my other sleeper team from not so much a sleeper, but still you would have to call them a sleeper because in the SEC and everybody's picking Alabama. But I love what's going on with one of my other futures picks in Georgia. They continue to dominate. Wisconsin's dominating. Penn State's dominating. And by the way, I haven't taken them yet. I may have to think about it now. Huge win for Washington State against Oregon, even though there was no Herbert. To be able to win that game after the emotional home win, first road game of the year for the Cougars, that's a big step for that program. They are now becoming a legitimate sleeper national championship team. I don't think they have what it takes to win the national championship, though. But odds wise, it may not be worth. I mean, it may be worth it as far as taking a look that way, but we'll see. And then finally, Miami and Florida State. Boy, that rivalry has really gone bad over the years. It used to be the best rivalry, the hottest rivalry. Remember everybody? Oh, it was always Alabama, Auburn, Texas, Oklahoma, Michigan, Ohio State, USC, UCLA, and that kind of stuff. Then whatever it was, I don't even know how long ago it was, 15 years ago or something, 20 years ago. It was Miami, Florida State had taken over as the rivalry in college football. Everybody wanted to watch it. The athletes, the first-round draft picks, everything. Now, not only do you not have as much talent on the teams, but we're getting the same kind of games because they were always defensive games. But now we're getting defensive, ugly games, or at least for the most part, performances. The good thing was that we got an exciting game in the fourth quarter, because for 3 quarters, that Miami-Florida State game was so bad. I mean, now I liked Miami a lot in that game because I actually expected that their offense was going to play a little bit better than what they played like. The first half they kept throwing the ball, and I couldn't tell you why. And I really found out that Mark Walton doesn't really have what it takes to be a really good running back. I mean, he's a product of the system and the competition he faces, but he wanted nothing to do with inside running in that game. He kept bringing it to the outside. You can't do that against speed talent like Florida State. So Walton is just a guy. That's all he is as far as I'm concerned. Not impressed there at all. But just when their offense started to get going, then they started to allow – I mean, when they allowed Florida State to move the ball down the field, which is the first time I've seen Florida State move the ball down the field like with this freshman quarterback in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Because the only time that they scored touchdowns in the 2 weeks really, or especially the Wake Forest game the week before, was like big plays. Big running play here, big screen there, whatever. It was like a big play. No marching down the field. So in this situation, though, just when Miami scored, Florida State marches down the field. I'm like, I can't even believe what I'm watching, that you're allowing this offense with this terrible offensive line, with this green quarterback to march down the field at this time in the game. And when Florida State took the lead, I really felt, I can't believe I'm watching this. I really thought they were going to lose. I said, I can't believe Miami's going to lose this game. They're going to lose again. They're going to lose the 8th straight year to Florida State with as bad as this Florida State offense looks. And then Miami was able to move the ball down the field again and score with a really tremendous pass play at the end that barely got in. I mean, I was starting to think, no, don't even tell me they're going to take away that touchdown. And then, probably, who knows what would have happened. I have no idea. I don't know if Rick would have went for it. He might have went for it. Maybe he kicks the field goal. They go to overtime. And who knows what kind of craziness happens at that point. But just a great finish, great fourth quarter. To a game where, look, I said this before and I'm still going to stick to it. Give him a couple of years. That's why I said a couple of years last week. And Mark Richt will recruit the right players there, and they'll be a top 10 program. But Miami is still a couple of years away. And Florida State is, as I said last week, they're going to lose some games this year. They just, now, they grew up a little bit offensively, and that'll help them. But they're not beating Clemson, not at Death Valley. I mean, that's just not going to happen unless they win like the turnover battle by 4. So it is what it is. Maybe 2 or 3 years from now, we'll see another great Miami-Florida State game. I'm from beginning to end, with some talent in the game. But we're not seeing that right now. We'll say Berrios looks like a receiver that we'll talk about maybe with Dan Shanka because I like what he did. He kind of one of those receivers that we see a lot nowadays in the NFL. Kind of short-handed guys that can kind of make plays. So got to talk about. And, again, he's not going to be a high draft pick, but we see these guys a lot. And, of course, one of them that almost is in that mode that I fell in love with, and you can now why I fell in love with Cooper Kupp. He's a little bit more than that. Of course, than a Berrios, but in a little bit the same mold, but to the extreme of greatness. And that's what I kind of saw in Cooper Kupp, and I think that's what a lot of people are seeing in him right now. And it just came that close from catching that pass from Goff that would have won the game for the Rams, but didn't happen. All right, so that'll wrap it up here for the Ourlads Football Network for a Monday. And we want to thank our guests for joining us. Want to thank, first of all, Jamal Murphy, our fantasy analyst, for giving us his take on what's going on here before you get ready for your pickups and free agency in the next couple of weeks. And also, of course, Jeff Hartman from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. So that'll wrap it up. We'll see you next Monday and every Monday through the season on this show. We'll also see you on Wednesday with Dan Shank at 4 o'clock. Thursday with Tony Mejia as we preview the NFL Week 6. Week 6 is it? Yes. And also fantasy football on Thursday evening with Jamal Murphy. And then we'll see you Friday for our college football preview show. So all week long, that's the Ourlads Football Radio Network here on PSN. Don't forget to check out Ourlads.com for the best depth charts in the business for both the NFL and college football. Follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. And we'll see you again next Monday for this show. But our next show this week is Wednesday, 4 o'clock Eastern with Dan Shanka, GM and National Scout of Ourlads.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Ourlads Football Radio Network.